buzzer took a monkey for a ride in the air. The monkey thought that everything was on the square. Buzzer tried to throw the monkey off his back, but the monkey grabbed his neck and said, "Now listen, Jack, straighten up and fly right. Straighten up and fly right. Straighten up and fly right. Cool down, Papa, don't you blow your top. Ain't no use in diving. What's the use in jiving? Straighten up and fly right. Cool down, Papa, don't you blow your top." Oh, such a cool song. Love that song. Nat King Cole used to sing that. And my father was a jazz musician, and I never realized it until later in life that those were lyrics. Because my father often used to say to me, "Straighten up and fly right." He never said, "Cool down, Papa, don't blow your top, and ain't no use in jiving," but he did say straighten up and fly right. And my brother and I both knew what that meant. Hi, Elaine. Hi, Jackie. Hi from Hi, Courtney. Nice to see you too. Ada from Virginia, North Carolina. That's Donna. Hi, Aaron. Hi from Michigan. That's Rachel. Oh, it's so nice to see everyone. Tennessee. This is so much fun. I mean, I really mean it. This is fun for me. I love this stuff. Okay, Christine. Hi. Christine DePaul. Good evening, Jane. Tanya from Western New York. You bet, Tanya. Western New York, my hometown. Judy says hi. Judy Fisher, Peabody. Newberry, Ohio. Okay, hello from New York. You bet. Wonderful to see. Minnesota, Susanville, Michigan, Massachusetts. I heard that from my father too. Well, Joanne, with a name like Joanne, we're the same vintage probably. Yeah. Yeah. Straighten up and fly right. Hi, Christy. Hi, Rick. Nice to see a guy in here every once in a while. Maryland, Illinois, Virginia, Georgia, Texas, Ohio, Indiana. You bet. Wonderful to see everyone. All righty. So tonight we're going to talk about strep. And strep is such a scary word, isn't it? I mean, we hear that word and we think, oh my gosh, and you go to the pediatrician and the child has not strep, this is strep B. Makes it sound more important. But strep, generally speaking, at least in the way that we use these homeopathic medicines, is no different from strep strains, all the different strains. And if you're a mom or grandmother of many children, you already know you've treated strep. It's not, I mean, you've been through it. You've been through this a million times. I will say, I don't believe any of my children, I'm trying to think. No. One of them did have strep. But I mean, I didn't have it tested because, as you may know, I never took my kids to pediatricians. I just figured it out myself. And I might add, just for your edification, I would not take my child to a pediatrician if he really needed it. I just felt he never really needed it because I had this under control. I had homeopathy under control. And so because of that, I felt as though I knew what strep was. I didn't need a culture. I could see it when they stick their tongue out. You can see the spots, white spots. Usually it's bright red with white spots. Excuse me. The white spots can be on the tonsils, or they can be on the uvula, or it can be on the throat itself. And there's also, excuse me, I'm going to take a sip of water. There's often a peculiar strep odor. And I don't know how to describe it other than it's a kind of a strong, sickly odor that is frequented with strep. And many times mothers know their child is coming down with strep because the odor comes first. And then the throat pain. Sometimes there's no throat pain too, by the way, but then there's throat pain and redness, and you look in the throat and voila, there it is. So Strep can be a dangerous disease, especially if there's rheumatic heart in the family. It can also be dangerous because of pandis. And pandis is kind of this newly noted condition that's a chronic condition that causes children, although I've also seen it in adults, to have an OCD behavior. And they believe it's caused by strep, and I tend to agree. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Every time the child gets sick, and they're usually a strep carrier, but every time the child gets sick with a strep throat, indeed, the OCD gets, oh, that's even worse. Goodness sakes, I'm going to wipe these down a little bit better. So we want to treat strep acutely with homeopathy. Generally speaking, the history of someone with pandis is often rife with antibiotics. And so the antibiotics are, oh my goodness. I should have done this before we started out. The antibiotics, in my estimation, just stress the body, push deeper the condition, force the microorganisms. I mean, this is kind of a colloquial way of putting it, but I think what it does is it makes the antibiotics go into hiding. Excuse me, the microorganisms go into hiding, and then antibiotics can't seek them out. I see this with interstitial cystitis, with women who have had chronic cystitis and antibiotic, and then they end up with what is declared as not really an infection any longer, although I believe on some level there is an infection, but they can't find it. And lo and behold, it's now acts just like a urinary tract infection. So we see it in a couple different areas in the body. And so I want to tell you that when my son had strep, I'm thinking back now I'm recalling it, he had a lot of pain. And that is the key. If a child has a lot of pain in the throat, they're even sometimes crying because it's so consistent, it's so painful. And there was a lot of redness. And as I recall, he had a fever, not a low fever, a pretty considerable fever. And a low fever is 100, 101, 102. I don't consider a good solid fever to be until we get to 103. But as I recall, it was probably closer to 104 plus something. That's a pretty decent fever. And we actually want those fevers to cook off these kinds of conditions. We don't want to treat fever. And if you would like to learn more about that, you might want to Google Joette Calabrese, Get Your Kids High. And of course, it's a play on words. I don't want you to get your kids high on marijuana or anything else, but that's what I mean. And you might want to read about that, because I find that fevers can be, not just in my world and in my practice, but it's been told many, many times that fevers are curative. They they kill off the microorganisms. But when there's strep and there's a lot of pain, I do indeed want to treat that with homeopathy. And so when my son had it, the number one medicine that we think of for strep, especially when it's strep that is painful and a high fever and bright red, especially those three. If you can find those three in here, then you've got a dead ringer for, anybody know? I'm going to scroll down. I know there are going to be folks here who know this. I'll wait a little while. And then we'll go to the second medicine that I also like very, very much for strep. If the fever is not high, or there's not redness, or there's not a lot of pain, then we can also go to a second medicine, which is actually, it's not second in line of use. It's more in addition to the first one, we can start using the second one. And that would be, I'll tell you that one while you're commenting. Heparsulf is the one. There we go, Heather. Thank you. Is belladonna. You bet. Aaron said belladonna. Domino, squishy head. Domino, squishy head. Belladonna. You're absolutely right. Heparsulf is very, very good. And that's just what I was going to tell you about next. But when there's a lot of pain and the fever is very high and it's bright red, that's a perfect picture of belladonna. And I like to use it in a 30. I use belladonna 30. I use it maybe if it's extremely painful or the fever is really high. I might give the first couple doses maybe 15 minutes apart. So it comes all, children usually get sick at night. Most everyone does when they get sick, especially with an acute. And give it, say, at 7 o'clock, at 7:15, give it another dose. Now the child's maybe calming down a little bit, maybe not. If the child's not calming down, then give another dose in about another 45 minutes or an hour, something like that. Meanwhile, you're giving them lots of good fluids, meaning water with maybe a little bit of salt in it, or bone stock, or kombucha, or little lemon water, fresh lemons and water. And you give them that to refresh them. Now, children who have, we got some other remedies here, and you're absolutely right. Some of these people are really on the ball. You're great, folks. Children who are craving oranges, citrus, oranges, grapefruits, lemons, often, if you ask them, okay, here are your choices: bone stock, some salt water, which salt water sounds terrible, but it really isn't. It's more, it's like having a nice salty broth. Some freshly squeezed orange juice. If they go for the citrus and you're not sure if it's Hepar sulf or it's belladonna, you most likely have belladonna on your hands. Belladonna likes those oranges and lemons and limes and citrus. So that's not the only reason we go to it. But it can be a defining last determining factor if you're not sure where to go. Now let's say the fever is, it's there. It's kind of wimpy. It's 101. It's 102. It's not really big. Children can stand much higher fevers than they should, is the way that I look at it. And so I think of a 101 fever rather wimpy. 102 is a little more acceptable. 103 is where we want to go with this. We want to go 104 if we can. And but the fever will come down with these homeopathic medicines, not because we're treating the fever, but rather we're correcting the strep, which is throwing off the fever, which is presenting with the fever. So if the belladonna, after, I'm going to say 5-6 doses, you see no change, meaning the child has not fallen asleep, the pain is still extraordinary, the fever is still raging, 104, and there's still a lot of redness. If all of those still add up, then maybe we've chosen the wrong medicine. And even though it looked like it would fit belladonna, it may indeed not be belladonna. So in that case, then we might go the second choice. My second choice was always Hepar sulfuricum. Now, it's not because Hepar sulfuricum is a better choice than the third one, but because my family is very sulfuric. That's all I can say, is that there's a lot of sulfur in my family. We used sulfur a lot for a lot of medicines. My grandfather in Sicily, where sulfur was big, it was the main source of sulfur for a good part of the world. My grandfather had a sulfur mine, and so I believe that there was a lot of exposure to sulfur. I don't know. It's speculative. It's kind of interesting. But I have found that sulfur has been very useful. And this particular son who was getting these, who got this strep infection, I don't believe it was more than one, but who got this strep infection, is someone who has benefited very much by sulfur. So I went with Hepar sulfuricum calcarea. Hepar sulfuricum calcarea, or short is Hepar sulf, Hepar sulf, SULPH. And so it has sulfur in it, so that we can extrapolate a little bit and say this family of sulfur is good for this particular person. So that kind of weighs us a little bit further towards the Hepar sulf as well. Interestingly, that particular son is now well into his 20s, and whenever he gets sick of any sort, he automatically takes Hepar sulf. He's found it to be extremely valuable. Now, what potency would we use? Again, I would use 30. Okay, here we go. Now everyone's coming back in again. Hi again. Hi again. Hi, hi, hi. I don't know what happened. Very strange. I don't think it's quite happened like that before. So where was I? So now let's say you've given the medicine. We're going to go to a third one, okay? But right now I'm just going to describe a little bit further, and then we'll go to the third medicine. If the first one doesn't act and the second one doesn't act, then we've got a third one, okay? So we're going to go to what happens now. You give the medicine to the child. You wait about 15 minutes. If it's really severe, give another dose. Wait another 15 minutes. If it's really severe, you give another dose. If at any time the child falls asleep, we know what that means, right, folks? It means the medicine is likely acting. Because if a child is in pain, he can't sleep. Now, imagine this. A child is vomiting, or you're vomiting, and you're nauseous. Do you think you can fall asleep during all of that? No, you can't. You're too sick to fall asleep. But if you give the medicine and you fall asleep, you give the medicine to the child and the child falls asleep, now we've got an indicator that that's very likely the medicine was correct. Now let's say they fall asleep in your arms, we put them into bed, and then 2 hours later they wake up crying. Oh, my throat, and you can smell it and you can see it and you know that it's still going on. What do we do? Let's see what everybody says. What do we do after the child is awakened after a few doses? Let's see what people come up with. So let's go to the third medicine while we're waiting for that answer. The third medicine that I really like very much, and someone said it earlier. I don't remember who it was. I'm sorry. I wanted to give you credit. Is Mercurius. Mercurius Sol. Now we can use Mercurius Sol. We can use Mercurius Vive. Depends on what you've got in your kit. They are not exactly the same medicine, but they're so close that they are practically the same medicine. So let's see what folks come up with. When the child wakes up, thank you very much. Amanda, Celeste, Tan Chow, very nice. Another dose, repeat the dose. Yes, Rachel says, same remedy again. Dose the remedy again. Absolutely. Redose, says Judy. Christine Borders says it. Yes, absolutely. Shauna says it. Absolutely. Give it again. You've got it. It's medicine. So don't ever, if you start confusing homeopathy because perhaps you're new at this, that it's similar to supplements or vitamins or nutrients or essential oils, that's going to throw you completely off. But if you remember this as medicine, if you have a headache and you're using conventional medicine and the headache goes away, but it comes back again, what do? Do you say, oh, I guess that didn't work? No, it means you have to repeat the aspirin again or the Tylenol or acetaminophen or whatever it might be. So you have to think about this as medicine. So Christina says, and it's very interesting, it's a good point, Christina Hubble-Butler says, see what the symptoms are now. Yes, you do want to see what the symptoms are now, but if they're anything like, even if there's even a little bit less to what they were when you gave the first medicine and it acted, then pretty much you're going to follow through. But let's say the symptoms have changed. She's got a good point. What if instead of we having strep, breath, pain, redness, fever, white spots on the throat, instead what we see is vomiting? Wow. I hope Facebook is not thinking they don't like this program that we're doing tonight. We are starting again. Unfortunately, I've got a class in 5 minutes. I was hoping to get this all done. I think we've got, hi, Rebecca. Thanks for joining in again. All right. Hi, Christy. Yeah, Christy says, Facebook's not happy with me tonight. I hope that's not what it means. I hope it's more technical, although we're not having any weather here. There's nothing going on. We will try again, and I will talk to you. I will finish this up, and I'll also tell you that I'm pretty sure that I've got an old blog up that you can, Joette Calabrese-实strep infections, so that you can kind of reiterate this a little bit further. So Mercurius Vive, Mercurius Sol is what are very, very similar. We would use them for especially if there is an inordinate odor from the mouth. Mercurius often has a strong odor. Sometimes there's also excessive saliva, meaning not that the medicine has that, but the need for that medicine includes those symptoms. So if you see, even from the onset, that the child's got a fever, there's pain, but the odor is very strong, and there happens to be excessive saliva, I would skip right over belladonna, heparsulf, and go directly to Mercurius Sol or Mercurius Vive. And I would use any of these in a 30. They could also be used in a 200. Most of you have kits that are in the 30th potency, and I strongly urge you, if you don't own a homeopathy kit, you should own one. We sell them in the office, but you don't have to buy it from me. You can buy from, directly from Boron or Highlands or any one of those. This is just very important to have, because if in the middle of the night your child gets a sore throat, you don't want to say, gee, I wonder what the medicine is, figure out what it is, and then have to wait for it to be sent or get to a store if you happen to be lucky enough to have a Whole Foods or something like that nearby. You don't want to have to do that. Instead, what you want is to have it right at hand. And these kits are not for chronic conditions. Someone said to me recently, well, how come camphor's not in there? And you talk about camphor all the time. Well, this is not for chronic conditions. This kit is so that you have something available. The top 100 medicines is the one that I like best, that we sell out of our office. They're all 30s except for the last 9. And the last 9 medicines are in a 200 potency. But this is not for using again and again and again. It's used for acutes, just so you've got it. Then when you figure out what the medicine is that you need, now you order it in a larger bottle so you don't run out. So, okay. Are they all alternative medicine related? I don't know what that question means. Let's see. Has help for the right-sided. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Mercurius iodatus flavus has also, you bet. Mercurius is great for this. So it could be a different form of Mercurius. Additional remedy for strep with ulcers on the tonsils. Oftentimes for the ulcers, it is Mercurius. That's been happening with other Facebook Lives I follow. Oh, interesting. Are they controversial? Nancy or Neely, tell me, what do you think? What potency of heat by itself? Okay, 30s or 200s? Okay. Oh, that's what the question was. Are they all alternative medicine related? Now I understand what Valerie's asking. Yes. Sort of natural and alternative therapy for dogs. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? It's been said that some classical homeopaths say that since the Banerjee protocols treat only symptoms, they don't treat symptoms. I don't know who these classical homeopaths are. They're not paying attention. We do not treat symptoms, ever. Say that since Banerjee protocols treat only symptoms and not the whole person, it's likened to allopathy and thus only manage to achieve a superficial layer of healing, if at all. Thus, apparently, the Banerjee protocols drive the disease deeper, and that's why classical homeopathy shuns it. No, that's not the reason why. You don't want to know why, do you? I don't want to get into something controversial. I know better and have some reasons why I disagree with this, but I would like help explaining this. Well, don't try to explain it to a classical homeopath. They just need to catch up. Yeah, the Banerjees are first of all, let me tell you that what I've just taught you tonight happens not to be a Banerjee protocol. And you will find what I've taught you pretty much in books that were written by books about acute illness written by classical homeopaths. So this is not a Banerjee protocol, but we never treat symptoms. I would say that maybe the classicals treat symptoms. That's kind of silly. No, we're using what the general public, we find that the Banerjees, in 85% of cases, generally speaking, between 80 and 85% of cases that I take that are chronic conditions, this first protocol is the one that works best. So that would mean, let me give you an example. Someone has a head injury 10 years earlier. They should have been given Arnica montana, for example. There are other medicines that can be just as valuable, but they should have been given Arnica montana, and they weren't. But they still have headaches from that head injury. What's the medicine we should be giving, classical homeopaths? Arnica. It's at least the first one we should be thinking of. There's Secuta verosa, there's Natrum sulfuricum, there are many others, but those are the ones that we think of first. Now, if you give that because you know that it is a very high likelihood that since it was a head injury, it's Arnica, is that not classical? Is it classical? Are we treating symptoms? No, we're not treating symptoms. I'll be honest with you, I feel sorry for some classical homeopaths who are still stuck in that paradigm. They could move their practice so much faster. They could teach it so much better if they just learned these protocols. Now, having said that, for those folks who decide they want to become a homeopath, by all means, they should be studying classical homeopathy. You've got to have that background. You got to know those aphorisms. You've got to know, you have to understand all the laws. You have to understand, I'm not talking about legality laws, but the laws of nature, the laws of health that are taught to us in those. You have to know how to repertorize. You have to know your materia medica inside and out. You got to know that materia medica, those top 100, 200, 300 medicines cold. And that's what classical homeopathy would teach you. But to call it that, little bit sour grapes, I would call it. Would these 3 medicines also be your first choice for extreme sore throat, but not actually strep? Excellent question, Meg. I was going to mention that. Yes. Whether it's strep or it's not strep, I would still strongly consider these 3 medicines. One of these. Don't give all 3 at the same time. Now, are these the only medicines we can use for strep throat and or sore throat? No, but they're the top 3. They're good ones. If the child is extremely cranky, cantankerous, fractious, happens also to be teething, you might want to go with something like chamomilla. Okay. Do you recommend knowing your constitutional remedy and trying that first, or go to one of these remedies first? Absolutely not. Why waste time? I like speed. What I don't like about classical is that it is often pokey. And in case you can't tell by the way that I speak, I'm all about speed. I'm all about, I want to get it done quickly. And using a constitutional medicine means you got to know classical homeopathy. Well, do you ladies have time for all of that? That's what I want to know. Do you have time to go to classical homeopathy school while you're raising your children? Or do you want to know what to use tonight? No, you do not need to use constitutional. Now, can the constitutional help? Perhaps, but I like these better. I'll be honest with you, because I also find that the constitutional is often quite subjective, and I want reproducible results. I want something as the most scientific results we can possibly get. I believe that the way homeopathy is going to survive in this world, if it does, and I'm very hopeful, is for it to be taken up by mothers and grandmothers and used consistently, regularly, and learning everything that they possibly can, and meeting at some point with pediatricians and other conventional medical doctors. We need to get the medical doctors using this. Can you imagine a medical doctor saying, let's see, we got about 2 hours here. Let's figure out what the constitutional is. Or is the conventional doctor going to say strep throat, bam, belladonna because of severe pain and high fever? Or if it's not that, okay, very extreme odor of the halitosis and saliva, bam, 2 minutes. That doctor can see that patient, and out that child goes with Mercurius vive. That's the medicine that we want. We do not want this to be esoteric. I don't know any other way of saying this. We don't want, this is not new age. This is science. We do not want this to be esoteric. We want it to be in the hands of all. I want this in Walmart, in Wegmans, in Walgreens, all the W's. I want this medicine in every household. We have to spread the word, because this is medicine that cures. Can we cure absolutely every single condition? No, of course not. Can we help people along and make their lives easier? Even if they're at the end of their life, can we give them quality of life? You bet. So I'm so sorry that we broke up twice. I hope I didn't lose folks. You can always go back, of course. And remember, we're every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And again, my name is Joette Calabrese, and I want you to share this and learn it and study with others and become relevant in everyone's lives that you touch. So with that, I say, mwah, God bless all of you. Have a great night and a great week. Hearts to all of you too. Bye. Straighten up and fly right. Straighten up and